Hey everybody, so we are in the beginning of December, so that means it's time to look at the games we've played in the month of November and see which one made the top 9. So before I get into that, let's have a look at the stats. Now, November was a good month for me. I played 78 times, 46 different games. 43 of those were my own games, so that's 8% of my base game collection that got played. And honestly, I got to thank Lily for that. She's been in a board game playing mood, so every weekend she's over, we've been playing lots of games. But let's get started with the top 9. So in number 9 position, I have Fantasy Realms. I purchased this one over the course of the summer. It's one that I heard lots of good stuff about, and I kind of had heard that it was being compared to Red Rising, and looks like it had that mechanism with the cards, which is something that I liked, so that definitely appealed to me. So the way that it works is you start with, 7 cards in your hand, and then you can draw a card and discard a card. So that's what you do on your turn. Now, you can draw from the draw pile, or you can draw from a card that's been discarded. And what's really interesting is whenever the discard pile reaches 10 cards, that ends the game. So you be like, well, you know what? I'm not ready to end the game. So you may want to draw from the draw pile just to avoid adding, or draw from the discard pile to avoid adding extra card in the discard pile. But then you're not seeing anything new, which might not be helpful to you either. And what's really interesting is each card is worth so many points, but then they also have different grouping abilities. So it could be like, if this is with other land cards, then it'll be worth this much more. Or if this one has magic cards, then it's worth this much. Or it could be like, if this one is with this cards, then it's worth -40. So you're just trying to get a combination that'll score the best for you, which is very much like Red Rising, but Red Rising adds a lot more to it. So it was neat. I really enjoy that one. So that's what's my number 9. Then in number 8 position, I have Framework. I bought Framework quite a while ago now, because I couldn't find a copy of Nova Luna, and I had played Nova Luna at Gobfest and really enjoyed it. So, and Framework plays very similar. It's from the same series. I'm not sure if it's the same designer, might be, but it's from the same series, and it has a very similar mechanism. So the way that it works is you have a bag with all the tiles into it, and you'll have 5 tiles up at any time. Sometimes we'll have a circle with a number inside of different colors, and basically that's kind of what you're trying to accomplish with those ones. So if it has a green circle with a 3 in it, then that means if that tile touches another tile that has frames, that creates a cluster of frame of the green color, then you've accomplished that one, and you can put one of your token on it. So some tiles will have just a frame that you kind of connect. So you're trying to put similar colored frames together to create a bigger cluster so that you can match the requirements of the tiles that'll come up. And some will be a combination of both. And the goal is to put all of your tokens onto the tableau that you're building. And the first one to do that wins the game. It's a neat kind of puzzly, neat tile laying puzzly game. And this was the last time I played. That's what it looked like at the end. So where you see all my green tokens, those are all the requirements that I had matched and complete. And you can see I've got different clusters of colored frames that may manage or made it so that I did get those scores. Super fun, super neat. And it's easy to play, easy to teach. It's just a satisfying game. In number 7 position, I have Bohnanza. Bohnanza is an older game that's just so much fun. And every time we play it, I really like it. And what's really neat with Bohnanza, so it's a deck of card, and that was a big deck of card, and you get 5 cards to begin with. But you cannot arrange your cards. And the card that is at the front, on your turn, you need to plant it. Now, you could plant multiple cards, but the one at the front, you have to plant. So if it's not a card that you really want to plant because it's not something that you have planted in your garden right now, you may want to try to trade it. So in your garden, you have 2 spaces that you can plant some different beans. and beans will be worth more the more of them you have planted. And depending on how rare the bean is or how common they are, could be that, if you have 10 of them, then it's worth 2 coins, while some of them are more rare. And if you have 2 of them, it's worth 3 coins, or different things like that, right? So you want to try to collect the beans that you have planted to kind of maximize the amount of point that it's worth. At any time, you can just cultivate your garden and cash them out, basically. But if you have a card that you didn't really want to plant, you have to, then you'll have to cultivate your garden, and maybe you don't even have enough bean to score anything, so that gets discarded and you put the new bean down. Then you'll draw 2 new bean, and then you negotiate on who wants to take these ones. Otherwise, those are going into your garden again. So this is a negotiation game. So sometimes be like, okay, well, I'll take your wax bean and I have a stink bean I'll give you. Well, no, I don't really want a stink bean. Yeah, but neither do I. So I'll give you 2 stink bean for your wax bean. So, well, I really don't want your stink bean. If you don't give me the stink bean, I'm not taking you, anything goes really in the negotiation, that it gets really funny and entertaining, and be like, sometimes like, okay, I can give you a wax bean. It's like, okay, well, what do you want? It's like, well, I want a blue bean. I don't have a blue bean. Oh, well, then I'm going to donate a wax bean because I really don't want it in my hand. So it's so much fun. The artwork is like whimsical and funny. So it's just a really fun, pleasant game to play. And it's one of those that I kind of consider like a modern classic now, right? In number 6 position, I have Cacao. I bought this one, I want to say at the beginning of the summer, maybe in the spring, but I played it for the first time in June around my birthday, because I remember I had to isolate. I had COVID, so it was my birthday, and Patrick ended up playing this one for me the first time. And then we played it again not too long, well, obviously this last month. And it was my first time that I got to play this one at the full player count. And this one is so cool. So it's a tile laying game, and you have your own colored tiles, and you'll draw 3 of them, and each one will have a little hut in the middle, and you'll have workers along the side. And there'll be 4 workers, but the combination is going to be different, whether it's going to be like 1 on either side, or 1, 2, and 1, or 1 and 3, or so on, right? And then you create this kind of checker pattern, because you'll put a village tile with like an action tile, and a village tile and an action tile, and so on, and it kind of goes along. And when you place your village tile, then the number of workers that you have boarding the action tile, then that's how many times you get to do that particular action. So, and in this one, you're collecting the cacao and taking them to market and selling them. Now, you can only have 5 on hand at a time, so you want to try to make sure that you sell them and not collect too much that you have room for. So maybe you kind of place your tile so that one of them touches going to the plantation and collecting the cacao. And maybe there's 2 plantations that actually get to collect 2. And then the other side of your tile is going to the market where there's 2 meeple symbols on there. So then that allows it to sell twice, and then the market might only be the once, but then maybe it's a better price. So then you get to sell those 2 for a slightly higher price, and so on. It is neat. This one is fun. Like, and you have the different, like there'll be temples that whoever has the most meeples connected to this temple get to score it at the end. You'll have some gold mine that allow you to collect the gold mine. There's just a bunch of different things that you can do in this cacao plantation, and it's so neat. I really enjoy this one. Then in number 5 position is Narcos The Boardgame. We ended up watching American Made, which is a movie about how this one gentleman in the States kind of got hired by the CIA to take some kind of surveillance pictures in the southern countries. And while he got in the middle of doing that, he kind of got forced into trafficking drugs for the cartel. And then when the DEA got a hold of that, then the DEA kind of was like, okay, well, you're going to work for us trying to take them down. So he got like so enrolled and roped up into this. And it was an interesting movie. And then afterwards, that same weekend, we're like, let's play that game, the Narcos game. So I have never watched Narcos, the TV series, and from what I understand, it is a TV series. And this is a board game based on this, but it's a good game. I'm impressed. So one player will play as the cartel trying to run their, and it's like, what is it, Esteban, or I forget what the name of the main character is, but he's running a drug cartel and he's trying to take over some of the farms to put labs into it and create the cocaine. And you get those little white cubes that are your coca cube, they call it, or and then you got to try to get these relocated into the cities that have an airport so that you can export it to the other countries that you're trying to kind of sneak this drug into. So all of that is happening on the person that's playing the drug cartel. Then all the other players, now in this case, we ended up playing 2 players. So the other player controlled all the other characters basically. But one is like the DEA, and one is like the Cuban police, and then the other one's like a rival cartel. And then they're all like, but it's a hidden movement game. So you're trying to find this guy and arrest him, but it doesn't show where he is. But as the drug cartel player, you will be putting out different players onto the board, onto this map. And depending on which player you put out, they can only be so far from the location of where this guy is. So it was like, Kim, I'm going to go here. It's like, oh, so that means you're 2 away. Okay, so then it's like in this area. And then it's like, okay, I'll put this one. I was like, well, that's 5 away. So that's kind of a bigger area. But then, so that means you're not here. Like, so, and you're just trying to figure out where this Colombian cartel guy is hiding. And then you do like the whole round. And if you haven't found them, then you go into the next round and he relocates. It's neat. I was impressed with this game, honestly. It was really cool. I played as the cartel, so I kind of want to play the other way now and see trying to find him instead of trying to hide. So, and this is a closer picture of the map. So you have city tiles, you have the farm tiles, and it was interesting. Neat game. Then in number 4 position is Ravels. This game is just adorable. And also this is month of November, during November, December, this is a time where I start crocheting all my Christmas projects that I give out as gifts. So, and this game is a game about doing knitted projects. And so it's like a resource management game where you'll be collecting different colored yarn, and then you're using that yarn to make projects such as teddy bears or scarf or gloves and so on. And then you can also use those projects you've created to fill orders. So maybe somebody wants 2 teddy bear and a scarf. So then if you get these projects done, you can trade them in for that order. And then the order is worth more points as well. It's cute. It is so cute, so neat. It's fairly simple to play. The components are so great in this one. And the tray that it comes with keeps everything together. I'm really enjoying this game. And that was Ravels. So in number 3 position, I have Pocket Detective Season 1. And this is actually a game that I ended up playing solo. And I almost never play solo. But with these ones, the Pocket Detective type game or the Escape and Unlock or even the Chronicles of Crime games, they always say like 1 to 4, 1 to 6. And honestly, it should be 1 to 2. And I like these a lot more than Lee does. So he was working in the garage. The kids were all busy. So I was like, you know what? I'll try to solve one of these on my own. Turns out I am a terrible detective, but I really like these games. So, and this one was interesting because it played a little bit more like Unlock because it's card-based games. There's really not really an app that you're playing with actually at all. And you have these different murder or crime scenarios that you're kind of going through and you're investigating it. So you'll have these cards kind of set up, the different cards with different numbers or cards that you can kind of go and dig through as they come up. And then you have the cards in front of you of what's happening. So you'll have the crime scene. And then you'll have like where you can look at the body closer, or you can look at, talk to, so you just have kind of the base of what's happening. Be like, okay, well, let's look at the crime scene. So it'll flip over and it'll describe what's happened and what you're seeing. And it's like, well, this is so-and-so's office. And then it'll give you kind of things like, if you want to go talk to so-and-so, you can find him here. And then it kind of gives you which card to go dig out. Or sometimes it'll be like, well, if you want to go to his house, you can go there. If you want to go to his work, you can go there. And there'll be kind of different option of what you can do, and you're trying to figure out what to do. Now, in the first scenario that I did, it was really time constraint. Like, you're trying not to waste your time, which I totally didn't get at first. So I was just wasting all sorts of time, right? So you could go to his location or go to his house. Well, it's the middle of the day. He's not home. He's at work, actually. His wife is home. So you talk to his wife real quick, and then she'll be like, but she's not kind of fully cooperative. So it's like, well, do you want to talk to the neighbors and start walking around talking to the neighbors? Oh, maybe you want to dig deeper in their financial and kind of see what's going on there. And then but some of this stuff is time trap, and it's just kind of sending you on these wild goose chase, making you waste your time. So, because you're trying to solve the crime. Now, at the end, I did solve the crime, but I took so much time doing it that the murderer got away, and he was gone to like Russia or something. So it was like, and it's neat. Like at the end, it's like, okay, so you tally up where you're at, and it just kind of gives you a range of how you scored. I was just like barely above fail. So it was neat. I really enjoyed this one. I did not do good. I just got so caught up, and kind of would get caught up in some of these time traps. I was like, okay. So the second game, like the second scenario that I did, and what was neat was the second scenario, it changed things a little bit. It wasn't so much about time, but this one was more about trying not to get, because you're investigating a crime that the police investigating, but they're not really discovering what's going on. So you're trying to solve this crime, but they really don't want you in their way. So you're trying to solve this crime without getting kind of arrested by them. So every once in a while, there'll be like something's like, hey, well, did you get in the way? So it kind of like flip the card over. It's like, no, okay, the police wasn't there. You're good. So you're trying to just work your way around them so they don't kind of lock you up for being in the way. But it's neat. I haven't done the third scenario yet, so I still need to do that one. But this is one of those games that once you've done it, it's done. But nothing gets destroyed. You just kind of sort the cards back up, put it back, and then you can pass it on to someone else to enjoy. So really enjoy that one. That was Pocket Detective Season 1. Then my number 2 game is Creature Comforts. This is another adorable game, and I played it with Lily this past month. And the first time I was playing it was playing really long. Now, this is still a longer game. It's not what you would consider to be a filler. But the first few times I was playing it wrong. And it was just causing it to go much longer. So now I've got the rules understood. But this is a worker placement where you'll be placing your workers, but each action that you're doing is also controlled by dice. So you need to have the proper dice to activate those actions. Now, when you get started, 2 of your dice you've rolled, so you know what those 2 are. But the other 4 dice haven't been rolled yet, so you don't know. So you're kind of like, okay, well, hopefully I get what I need to do this action, so I'll put a worker there. And then I'll put a worker here because it doesn't matter what I roll, I'll be able to activate something there. And then I'm hoping I get another 4, so I'll put this there. And they kind of place your workers hoping that you'll get the dice that you want. And then you roll the other 4 dice, and then you're like, okay, so then, well, I wanted to go there, but I didn't get the proper dice, so I can't. But I can send dice there and activate this instead. And you kind of start activating the different location that you've got. And you'll be collecting resources, and you'll be spending those resources to purchase comforts, because you're playing through 3 seasons, spring, summer, fall, so that you have all your comforts together and you're ready for winter. And there's special ability cards that you can go and purchase as well that you'll need resources as well. It's just a really neat. The artwork is beautiful. The components are great. Let me show you the components a little bit closer here. So you'll have like the wooden token resources, and then you have like the little wooden meeples for each creatures. Then everybody plays as a different creature. And your playboard is like your little hut of where you live that you're trying to get all comfortable for winter. It's neat. This one also has Maple Valley, which is a sequel that's out in Kickstarter right now. So, which also look equally adorable, but I haven't played it yet, so I don't know how it compares. But yeah, this one was a lot of fun. So that's my number 2. Now my number 1 for the game of November is Chronicle of Crime 1900. What can I say? Even though I'm a terrible detective, I just love these types of games. And this one is app driven. And it's so interesting. My friend Allison had come over and I had been telling her, I'm saving this for you because I know you'll love it. And we ended up playing it, and guess what? She loved it. So you'll be pulling up the app, and they'll be like, okay, so you're going to... Now, Chronicles of Crime, the original one, like you're a detective kind of solving crimes. Then the 1400 is like in more historical era, and then you are a detective, but you can get visions, so you're a police officer of that era. The 1900, this one is you're a journalist. And your uncle's is a police officer, and you get brought on to kind of like write about the stories. And sometimes your uncle will be like, hey, we need your help with this one, and so on. So, and you're going, so you get called into the crime scene. And what's really interesting is like, so on your app, be like, hey, you're at the crime scene, look around. So you'll kind of flip it to start, and then you move your camera all around because it's 3D. Now, if you have like the 3D viewer, you can do that, and then everything looks in 3D. So you look around the room trying to figure out what's around, and then you'll call out, say, okay, I see paperwork. Okay, I see food over here. And then I was like, oh, there's blood there. And then I was like, I think there's a gun. So that's a weapon. And you're kind of looking and calling out what you see. The other player then pulls out the card that would kind of match that description. And then you'll swap and then have them look around, see if they see anything that you might have missed. And then afterwards, everything you've looked at, you'll scan. And they'll be like, oh, that's nothing. It's like, that was interesting. You pulled through the paperwork and turns out that, like maybe there's a will, or, then the information on it has been scratched off or whatever. Like, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that you'll come across that'll be like, okay, you've discovered a clue. So then you put that on the board as clues that you discover. But everything has the QR code on it so that you can scan it. And then you'll go to the location and then be like, oh, well, somebody had witnessed the crime. So great. Well, let's go talk to the witness. And you talk to the witness. And then once you scan the witness, you can scan the other card. So you can scan the victim while you have the witness up. So you can ask him about the victim. Then you can scan the murder weapon and ask him about the murder weapon. Then you can scan the paperwork. Say, well, do you know anything about this paperwork? And so on. So you're kind of figuring out and uncovering what's going on. But it's more than just finding out who the murderer is. Like, okay, well, what was the motive? Who was helping them? What happened exactly? So you're just trying to get all the details of the story. And then when you think you've discovered everything you needed to, you could go and solve the crime. And then they'll ask you questions like, okay, well, then who was the murderer? It's like, okay, well, you scanned the card. It was this one. Okay, well, why did they murder? It's like, okay, well, you scanned the paper. It's like, because of this paperwork that is explained in the paperwork. Okay, well then who was the accomplice? And sometimes like, there was an accomplice? Oh my God, we missed all of that. So then that will be affecting your score because you missed a big part of the story. But it's neat. I really like this one. So that's why my Chronicles of Crime 1900 for the month of November was my number 1 game. Here's a recap of all the games that made it into the top 9. Of all the games that I've played during the month of November. So December is shaping up to be a little bit slower because we're getting ready for Christmas, but I am doing a full games day with some girlfriends on Sunday, so I'm hoping to get a lot of games played that weekend and hopefully more as well. So stay tuned to see which one makes the top game for the month of December. But in the meantime, if you want to follow me on Facebook, my Facebook page is Mel's Board Game Room. I'm also on Instagram as Mel's_boardgame_room. I have a podcast that we post every week with my friend Carla, and that's the Board Game Specialist. And we're about to hit our episode 50, and we're going to be doing our top 50 games of all time, so be sure to tune in for that one. And then my YouTube channel is Mel's Board Game Room. So thanks for tuning in. Bye, everybody.